Hi, thank you everyone. Fortunately, Director Cisse was not able to come. He is dealing with the current political situation in Mali, which is going to be part of our conversation today. I am presenting his lecture. This is his, but I agree with all of his points, so that's quite easy for me. And we're going to be talking about some of the destruction and the cultural heritage monuments in Timbuktu and in the Dogon country. And then also some really amazing movements and actions by the local populations in Mali that have actually saved a lot of their heritage in the face of certain destruction by radical groups. So Mali seems and feels a bit of a world away from a lot of the situations that are happening more towards the Near East and Middle East. But Mali itself has been going through some political crises since about 2012. Mali, which is in West Africa, as we all know, it is, for the most part, the eastern half of the country that is considered to be a hot zone. It's a no-go area for Westerners, for archaeologists, for tourists, whatsoever. So those are the regions of Timbuktu, Kidal, Gao, and Mopti. So we're going to be focusing most of our attention on these regions. Mali itself is also home to several different and diverse ethnic groups. Perhaps the two best known ethnic groups outside of Mali are the Tuareg, which inhabit the northern part of the country, and then the Dogon, which are located sort of in the central middle part on top of these tall cliffs. Because not a lot of people have had formal training or university classes in West African history, I'll just spend a moment talking about some of Mali's long period of history. Essentially, starting the first empire is Empire Ghana, which starts around 500 BC, and this encompasses a large area. And then you have the Empire of Mali, after which the country is named. And this is one of the largest empires in the ancient world in terms of landmass. And it covers this entire region. And this is around the 13th century AD. For a brief moment, the capital Mali was Timbuktu, but it moved around from time to time. And then the largest West African empire occurring around the 14th and 15th centuries AD was the Songo Empire, based out of Gao. Which is a really important city as well, just as important as Timbuktu, but not as well known outside Mali. So obviously there is a lot of trans-Saharan trade, and that's where the cities like Timbuktu kind of gain prominence is due to the trades of slave, gold, and salt during the Malian Empire, north towards Africa. So Mali has 4 official World Heritage Sites. We have Timbuktu, Djenné, the Dogon country, and the tomb of Askia, which is located in Gao. Just to show, so we're talking about Djenné, Timbuktu, and Gao. Those are the 3 primary sort of ancient cities in Mali. Bamako is the modern capital. It really wasn't much of a settlement until the later periods. And then this is the Pays Dogon, or the Dogon country, this location here. So effectively, from Dogon all the way up, that area has now been affected by the current political crisis. Timbuktu is famous for a lot of things. In fact, the whole city is a World Heritage Site. It is perhaps most famous in some ways for its 3 mosques, which also served as a sort of sort of center for study and learning. And then also, Timbuktu is also very famous for its manuscripts, for its music. A very famous African musician, Ali Fakatora, came from the Timbuktu region, and many other things. Djenné, which is a sister city to Timbuktu, equally as important, has a deep archaeological history as well, and is most famous for its mud mosque at Djenné. And then the Pays Dogon. The Dogon are perhaps most famous for actually building their settlements on the sides of cliffs. This is more of a historical trend that has continued on to some degree in the modern period, but essentially they build their settlements on the sides of cliffs, sometimes only accessible by rope. And this is a typical shrine you might see in the Dogon country. Okay, and the tomb of Askia, which is an important Islamic monument in Gao. The situation in Mali, now we covered sort of some of the earlier periods, but the situation in Mali really kind of starts to heat up in 2012. Essentially, Timbuktu is the powder keg moment here. We have several different radical groups kind of vying in competition and sometimes in cooperation with each other, essentially come into Timbuktu, kick out the military, and then begin a program of total destruction of certain types of objects. So now the occupation is currently, like I said, in these 4 regions. They've instituted certain fundamentalist laws like Sharia law, and have had a major negative impact, total impact on tourism in this area, which had accounted for about 60% of revenue in these regions. So in Timbuktu, this is just part of the destruction that was recorded there, but 16 mausoleums to early Islamic saints were destroyed within a few days of each other. Certain ritual festivals, non-Islamic festivals, have been stopped. Even music was outlawed, and in Timbuktu and in Mali in general, and West Africa in general, music is a real cultural strength of theirs, and they take a lot of pride in it. So that's another thing that was outlawed. Women were forced to wear veils, and then perhaps the bit of information, or the act that got the most press attention, was the burning of the manuscripts in Mali, in Timbuktu. So, and this is just what one of the tombs looks like that had been destroyed. Okay, this is in Timbuktu. Now, one of the points that Mr. Cisse brings up, which I think is really important, and something that we often overlook when we have these discussions, is that cultural heritage is a wide topic. It just not only covers archaeological artifacts, but in fact does cover what's called living heritage. So traditional lifeways, practices, rituals, song, and dance. All these have been, in certain regions of northern Mali, have been completely outlawed. And this is having a real negative impact, not just on the economic sort of pocketbook of the populations there due to the lack of tourism, but their own real, sort of tangible aspects of their living heritage has also been diminished. And the longer that this goes on, it's been 3 years now, the longer this goes on, the more we are at risk of losing these really rich and important sort of living heritage practices. So I want to bring that up just for some of us to think about. And that was good on Dr. Cisse to mention that. Okay, the burning of the manuscripts, which everyone wants to know about this. Effectively, when the French forces, well, even before the French forces came in, but during the occupation of Timbuktu by these radical groups, all of a sudden there were news pieces coming out saying that all the manuscripts had been burned, which was a real shock to everyone who had heard that piece of early news. And then reports started coming out that, around 4,000 maybe had been destroyed. But Timbuktu houses somewhere between 400,000 and maybe 1 million manuscripts. And then when the first news crews got into the libraries of Timbuktu and looked around, all the books were gone. And, it was a big surprise to a lot of Westerners and even to some people in the Malian government. But what was most important about this story is that all the manuscripts were taken away, literally book by book on the back of mopeds and boats all the way to Bamako, the capital, slowly over the course of a few months as the local populations in Timbuktu realized that something was going to happen. And this isn't the first time that Timbuktu's been taken over or conquered. This is about the 4th time in the past 120 years that Timbuktu has seen some really serious conflict. And the same sort of cultural institution has been enacted every time. Locals go out, they take manuscripts, they hide them in the desert, in their villages, or they bring them to a city that's going to be safe. And then once the situation resolves itself, they bring the manuscripts back to Timbuktu. So this is a really good local way of solving this problem of how do you protect at least heritage that can be moved, these physical books, right? And then, I don't want to take up too much more time, but, in the Dogon country, things are looking very good as well. You have several types of sites that have been damaged. And effectively, as I mentioned before, this is a major reduction in tourism revenue for this area. and that now there are narco traffickers in the region, and it continues to be unstable, which is unfortunate. And here you see in one of these Dogon cliff villages. This is very recent as well. You have structures, these ancient village structures before, and then just a few months later, you have an after photo showing a lot of destruction. So, what do we need to do to help protect some of the cultural heritage? I mean, the answer is simple and difficult to implement. We need to stop the political situation in northern Mali. Now, as archaeologists and researchers and concerned citizens of the world, it may not be easy for us to manage that. But what we can do, which I think will have a great benefit, and which some organizations have already started, is to help support the local populations in their own ways that they have developed to help their own cultural heritage. And so right now, like we said, around 400,000 manuscripts are being housed in Bamako. However, in Bamako, there's not the funds to actually house the manuscripts in a way that will keep them, okay? So now we're done. So that's it.